Good morning, everybody. Good to see you. Thank you for being here, bright and bushy-tailed, on Wednesday, June 29th. I'm excited about this morning. We have the legendary Winkari in our midst here. He's hanging off in the side wings of the stream. I want to be more intentional and start just a stream with prayer, just briefly, and just invite everyone to join me in prayer. This stream is really just a place to come and receive encouragement and receive hope, and hopefully hear something that's going to add value to your life through somebody else's journey and through somebody else's story. And so that's our prayer. That's our goal here. That's what we really want and hope for. And so for whoever's here, if you join me in prayer just for a minute. Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for today. God, we just pray that this stream and that these stories would honor you, would glorify you, and would encourage and create hope in other people's lives. God, we love you. We thank you for this community, for whoever's here, whoever decides to show up. We just pray favor and peace over their life. And we pray that they would receive exactly what you have for them this morning. God, we love you and we thank you for today. In Jesus' name, amen. So every week I'm just going to touch on this, but really, testimonies, right? The word testimony means to do it again. The root word means to do it again. And we fully believe that what God has done in the life of somebody else, he wants to do it again in your life. Good morning, Alexandra. And so we're here. Testimonies are a weapon of warfare in a season where you're discouraged, when you are dealing with, say, depression or tons of disappointment, or you're struggling through something. Your testimony or testimonies are really a weapon of warfare to be able to go back, reread those things, dwell on them, meditate on them, remember who you are, who God made you to be. Super valuable. They align our heart with God's, just redirecting our attention back to him and his goodness instead of our own insecurities, our own struggles, or what we're going through. And so I just encourage you guys, everybody, to really be intentional about your testimonies, writing them down, sharing them, remembering them. creating a lifestyle of acknowledging them really in your life. Last week, I gave the challenge that whoever was here, I challenged you to write something down, write a story, write a testimony, write a prayer in a journal. And I hopefully, and you guys did that, at least some of you. The value of, yes, you are good to go, Winkari. So the value of good morning, thank you. Oh man, there's the browser alert might just be hidden. Actually, that's false alarm. I thought the browser, there we go. Good morning. Thank you for the follow. So the value of having a testimony or a story that God's done in your life or in a journal like this is, hey, 3 years from now, when I'm like, dude, I have no hope. I haven't heard God in this season. I don't know what to do. I'm struggling with this. You can now go to the bookshelf and pull this off and open it and be like, wait. Okay, on June 29th of 2022, I remember he told me this, or I remember, hey, I got a check in the mail. No idea where it came from, but it was like a reimbursement check from my insurance, and I don't know why, but it saved our ability to pay our bills, things like that. It's so valuable to have something like this. So I really encourage you guys to really take time to keep notes. I'm not great at it, but there is some cool things here, and it's not limited. Good morning. It's not limited to, obviously, just notes. It could be pictures or, dreams, things God's given you too. So yeah, God stories. That's why we're here. This channel is the first channel on Twitch and YouTube eventually when we get the content rolling. The whole purpose of it is just to share testimonies of gamers around the world, just what God's doing in gamers' life, what he's done, how he's speaking to them right now. And it's really just meant to be a hope machine and an encouragement and a life-giving thing. And we do have some every week, everyone is amazing. Everyone's got their own stories. But I do have a couple people on deck that just have some really incredible supernatural things that have happened in their life. And I'm just excited about the future. I'm excited about where we're going. And yeah, we just appreciate you being here. If you know someone that has an awesome story, or if you yourself want to share your story or a story that God's doing in your life, please, I'd encourage you to fill out this form. I have the link in the chat. It's for anybody. Anyone can fill it out. Anyone can get connected, set up an interview time just to talk about it. Right now, I think I have 8 or 9, I think, testimonies total. So I've done, this will be the third one. I have 5 or 6 more. And I've been getting about one a week. But if you know somebody or you want to share yourself, please fill out a form. We'll get you on the schedule. The other thing I want to mention, last thing before I bring Winkari on, is every week what I'm going to do to create a little bit more value for the community and the people sharing, I've asked every person, hey, if we were to get donations or something of the sort in the future, I want to take any money or any income possibilities and really hand that off to an organization or a ministry of choosing of the person who's sharing. And the purpose of that is really to just create more value for them, allow people to be able to share the things that mean a lot to them, or the organizations that mean a lot to them, and be able to connect with that. So this week, Winkari's, I put it in chat there. If you would like to donate at all in any way, shape, or form, Winkari's passionate and partnering with this organization called OMF, and it's a mission organization overseas. They send missionaries. It's cross-denominational, across country. It's pretty incredible, actually. And they just send missionaries everywhere, different countries. And Winkari, he can talk more about it, but he's heading to the mission field later this year, and so it's just an awesome organization, somebody who he's partnering with. So if you'd like to donate, you can go there. Otherwise, without further ado, I'm going to bring on the man, the myth, the legend. Hopefully he's unmuted. And here he is. Winkari. Hey, good morning.
Hey, good morning, man. How are you?
Good to see you. Good. Thank you for
You
being
as
here.
well.
It's early.
Hey, happy to be here. This is actually, I don't know if you knew this. This is my first time being on Twitch since I've stopped streaming.
Oh, snap. That's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about. This is
yeah, it's
like
awesome.
Twitch royalty here. So I appreciate you being here. In
Yeah,
the middle
man.
of the stream, I'm just going to ask you to stop and just draw a picture randomly of something I want. That's what we got
Right?
to
Some wall art. Man, good times.
do. Yeah, good to see you as well.
Yeah,
So so this morning, let's just start off with a little bit of intro. People might not know you, might be new people. Um,
sure.
yeah, I guess I'll let you introduce some of the details, but let's just start with obviously, um, are you married? Do you have a family? Where are you at in the country? Um, let's go with your favorite video game of all time
Okay.
and why you felt encouraged or inspired or anything to share. What was kind of the trigger that said, "Hey, I'd love to share."
Sure.
Oh, let's go! Donation of $5. Let's
Hey.
go straight to OMAP. I'm excited.
So, yeah, hi everyone. My name's Winkari, if I haven't met you before. I am married, beautiful wife. Ohana means family is actually in the chat right now. The one that's spamming our chat. That's my wife. So thanks, honey. But yeah, beautiful wife, and I've got two kids, 4.5 and a 1.5-year-old girls, and they're pretty amazing. Very privileged to be called their dad. Myself, we currently live in the Milwaukee area of Wisconsin, a suburb of Milwaukee. And I'm 37, will be 38 in just a couple months here, so I'm getting up there.
Good morning,
But
Jeffrey.
yeah, getting up there. But getting into gaming, you said favorite video game, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
that what you were asking? That's a tough one, right? It's like asking a gamer to name their favorite game is like, asking a foodie what their favorite food is. It's like, can't I just say all of them? Let's see. Hey, Delcree. Um, let's see. I would probably have to go. I would.
For the record, I did not
Best.
preface this to him, so he has had time
No, it's all
to
good.
think
I would
about
say
this.
best memories in terms of probably like childhood would probably be Pokemon.
Okay.
Just in terms of like I remember playing that in high school and just really being all about that. But I would say favorite game of all time would probably be Baldur's Gate 2.
I have never played any of Baldur's Gate. What kind of games are they?
They're isometric RPGs, so those types of RPGs where you look kind of from the top bottom, kind of like
Sure.
a bird's eye view, kind of point and click your party. It's kind of like strategy. Well, not strategy. It's kind of like turn-based role-playing, but a little more RTS-ish, if that makes any sense.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's good. I remember
It's super story-driven. Super story-driven.
the Pokemon thing. I, for whatever reason, just forgot about it. But I had a Game Boy
Yeah,
Pocket, a silver Game Boy
yeah.
Pocket with blue. Blue was better than red, clearly. And
Yeah.
just that was great. That was a lot of fun. That was probably the
Yeah, I
first game I
remember.
really
I,
got
I remember
into.
having yellow, where like Pikachu followed you around. I just like played the junk out of that game. Just man, I played that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. And then
hmm
what inspired you to want to share just in general?
Sure. I mean, in the simplest form, why wouldn't I? I mean, if I call myself a follower of Christ, it truly is all about Him, and any opportunity to share about more deeply who God is and the power of who He is in our lives, you can't pass that up. And God's done a lot in my life and the people in my life. And any opportunity to share that is an absolute privilege. And I think it's amazing that you're doing this ministry. And I'm just honored to be here and share and hopefully encourage, at the very least, inspire. Or maybe there's someone in here who doesn't, really know God, doesn't really know Christ. And maybe you'll get a little little closer to Him today. That's the hope.
That's good. Yeah, I was hoping that you weren't going to say because you asked me to.
Well, I mean, that's a practical reason too, but
Sure,
even if you hadn't asked me, I
sure.
I probably would have been like, "Hey, can I come do the stream?"
Yeah,
You know.
it's funny because one of the main goals of the channel is to get to really focus on the community and make it less about streamers and content creators, just about hey gamers that just love Jesus, want to share their story. That's it.
Yeah.
And we just have conflict of scheduling and different things this week. So I'm like, okay, I have X amount of people that I can Hail Mary if I need them. I'm like, let's reach out to Winkari. It ended up not needing necessarily to be an emergent thing, but I'm glad you're here. Glad you could
You're
make it and
basically
fill
saying
in.
I'm the backup. Okay, I get it.
You
I
you
get it. You're
know,
like, I had these amazing people, and then I was like, well, I guess I could get the Winkari guy. He's retired. I'll pull him out of retirement.
I just don't want people to feel like, oh, it's just all about streamers and content creators and this is,
No, no,
you know
no.
what I
I
mean,
hear
that
you
type
loud
of
and
thing.
clear.
So that's
Yeah,
funny.
man.
Okay. All right. I appreciate you being here. I know you're here to share a story. You can preface maybe a little bit what you're going to share on and or maybe just
Sure.
dive into it, but go ahead and share his story. We're listening. I will banter or butt in if I feel like I need to. And if anyone thinks the music is too loud or too quiet, whatever, just let me know. But otherwise, we're all ears, Winkari.
Sure, man. Yeah, I think just to preface really, really what God's done in my life, my family's life, the past 2-ish years, I really do want to preface that with really what He's done prior to that as well. Really knowing Him intimately and giving my life to Him. I was raised in a big Catholic family. Some people might be able to relate to that. Maybe you have an experience within the Catholic Church, and didn't really have much of a deep understanding of who God was, kind of in that denomination, if you will. So I grew up and kind of strayed from God in my college years. And through a series of events, I was actually an actor. My undergrad degree was in theater. So I did that professionally, and then I did film work in Los Angeles and Chicago. And through a series of events, when I was 28, entered the military of all things. And when my first duty station was Korea, God orchestrated really all of these kind of a life events and twists and turns to really show His faithfulness to me. That even in my young years of being introduced to Him, that He never really let me go. And I was sitting in a specific chapel, hearing a specific sermon, and I realized finally, deeply and truly, what it meant to really not just believe in God, to know of Jesus, but to follow Him, not to be a fan from the sidelines, but to be a follower. And I committed my life truly, deeply at that time. I was baptized as an adult at 28 years old, and my life really has never been the same since. So I think it's just important to preface that also, in case someone's here and really is curious, or maybe has had a little introduction to God, things of faith. But in the last few years, we've been through a lot. God's story through us has been filled with a lot of tragedy and trauma, but we've learned that often that God allows that to really mold us and refine us into who He wants us to be. So for us specifically as a family, I would say, this started about 2 years ago. I was graduating seminary, and we were ready to go to Japan, actually, as missionaries, as a family. And I had a health scare the day after we were appointed to go. I was rushed to the ER with symptoms of a heart attack. And pretty healthy dude, totally caught us out of left field. And to make a long story short, I thought that was it. Never been through something like that before, and I'm being rushed off, leaving behind my wife, my daughter, and another one on the way at the time, thinking I'm leaving them behind. And thankfully it wasn't as bad as we thought it was, but there was a lot of residual trauma, kind of PTSD, anxiety, panic, some health stuff that came from that as well for the following months that really, really wrecked me. Maybe there's someone in here today who has an experience or is experiencing things like anxiety, right? Panic, things of that nature. that was really hard for me. Um, I'm a pretty calm, cool, collected cucumber for those who know me. So to go through something like that was really hard for me. And I had to question things. I had to question control. I had to question, is God enough for my family? You can relate to this, I'm sure. Because in your flesh, you think truthfully, no. You think that a wife needs their husband, a child needs their daddy. That's what you feel in your flesh. And that was really hard for me to think that God could call me home and that he would be enough for them without me. And as I'm walking through those things, relinquishing control, we just weren't really in a place to go to Japan at that time. We told our mission agency and were redirected away from that. And another big question mark, right? I mean, we had been really called to Japan for years in the making, and to now all of a sudden not have that transpire brought more questions. And really, at the end of the day, questions of identity. Is our identity found in being missionaries or church planters, being in Japan? No, ultimately. And pretty early on, we were being taught by God that ministry is whatever God's called you to right here. Not way over there, not behind you. It's right here. And to operate in that space can be challenging. And that was one thing that God was teaching us in that season. And in the midst of all that, we got introduced to this really unique and really clever trailblazing ministry called God Squad Church, which I believe most of you guys know about. And through a series of events, they had the need for a discipleship pastor when I was now looking for what was next for us. And, one thing led to another. And we upped and moved to Virginia. I was the discipleship pastor at that church for a brief period. And after 3.5 months of uprooting our family from Denver to Virginia, another tragedy came into our lives. My eldest sister passed away suddenly at the age of 42. And the oldest of 6 kids rocked our family in many ways, particularly her family left behind, a husband and 3 kids, and my parents obviously losing their firstborn. And we were trying to digest and pray through what this really all meant for us, if anything. And to make a long story short, the people left behind, including my immediate family, really didn't have a hope and a joy and a faith that one really needs in such hard times. And we felt God saying that we had an opportunity to go be a light, to bring joy and hope in a home that desperately needs it. And we listened. I wouldn't say it was easy, but I would say if you ever go through life and God is crystal clear about something in communication, makes it a little easier, usually, to listen. And we moved just after 3.5 months from now Virginia to Wisconsin, which is where we're at now, and moved into a home that now total has 12 people, 4 dogs. Thankfully, it's a big home, so it's doable. But in the midst of all that, we were able to be present and love on our family, to minister them in a unique way. And as we were asking questions of what was next for us, that's when God got a hold of us again in a really powerful way. We were driving to the library, and we were listening to one of our Japanese bands on my phone. And I turned to Hana and I asked her if she ever still thought about Japan. And she said yes. And I realized I had this melancholy that I couldn't really shake because our peers were now getting ready to go to Japan when we were originally supposed to go in November of 2020. And in the midst of all that, I really felt God nudging me as she said the door maybe wasn't ever fully closed, but just temporarily.
Yeah.
That God was calling us back to Japan. And before we could really get ahead of ourselves, because I definitely wanted to get ahead of myself, we slowed down, and we were impressed upon by God that we needed to seek him, not about Japan, but really about what he's trying to communicate. Because whatever God's trying to speak to you or me is way more important than the thing, right, that we're trying to figure out. So we as a husband and wife for a week fasted and prayed. We just went to the Lord separately and said, God, what are you trying to tell us? We've been through a lot in these 2 years, a lot of moving and transition and trauma. And I read something out of a book called The Emotionally Healthy Leader by Pete Scazzaro. As he referenced 2 Chronicles, I believe it's 36, might be 37, that talks about how Jeremiah prophesied about how the land of Israel would essentially go into this extended Sabbath rest to make up for the fact that it wasn't keeping its Sabbath. And the author is really sharing that the Israelites, as they went into exile in Babylon, as a metaphor to this, were now being put through an extended Sabbath rest because they were not resting in the Lord properly. And I had one of those lightning bolt moments from God that I was reflecting on the years of ministry that we had been doing up to that point, which was about 4, 5. That was us also. Particularly me.
Sure.
Who likes to go, say yes, do. You know, my wife also, huge servant's heart. We love to serve the Lord and say yes to things, but at what cost? We realize that if it's at the expense of your rest in the Lord, that is a sinful thing. And that was very convicting, but also very freeing, because we realized that this is something that would pay dividends in so many walks of our life, to understand that we first and foremost must rest in the Lord, and not just in principle, but practically. And it was a really good exercise for us this past year or so to really reflect and say, what does it look like to intentionally Sabbath? What does an intentional Sabbath day look like? What is an intentional Sabbath of resting throughout our days, our weeks, our rhythms, our routines as a family, as husband and wife, and as parents and as disciples of Christ? It was so good for us, and we're still learning that day by day.
Sure.
Right? We don't have that all figured out this side of heaven.
But
we were so grateful that God would. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just thinking, as as believers, especially newer believers, I feel like the whole rest thing is almost counter what's communicated, even though it's not being meant to be communicated. I was like, no. You need to serve, talk to everyone about Jesus every day, every moment you get. Pray for every single person you run across. Do everything you possibly can. Just die, like just literally just kill yourself. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's encouraging to me, and I'm sure to other people too. But just the value of rest and just learning that from you guys and from other people in the season. But go on. That's
absolutely
observation.
Yeah, I remember reading. Well, it just makes me think of. I read a book called, I believe it's called With, by Sky Jathani, I believe is the name. It was a book I was assigned in seminary, and they talked about this word called missionalism. And it's ironic because at the time I was kind of like looking down upon this section of the book, because they really talk about how you can even be on mission for God in an idolatrous way of sorts. The notion was really that you're so focused on mission that you're losing sight of God, and it's His mission, and we're not supposed to get trapped into the doing and the
Yeah.
At the time, I kind of scoffed at that because the style of ministry we were within. But as I'm kind of growing and learning and living, maybe there's some truth to that. Yeah, not focusing so much on quote mission-ing, but maybe God-ing, if that makes any sense. But as we're really being, I think, affected by that in a really powerful way, we were really grateful for it, that we could give that to God. And lo and behold, God was calling us back to Japan. And I'm sure you can relate to this, and probably some of you in the chat, but it's so often in hindsight that you look backward and it makes so much more sense after the fact, right?
Yeah.
You get that kind of macro bird's eye view. And again, I'll be 38 this year. I've moved 20 plus times. lived in multiple countries, states, done many things. And that's not like a pat on the back to me, but as an example, I can look back now and see much more crystal clear how God uses and orchestrates in all these different ways that I didn't really see at the time. And it truly, I believe, can and should give glory and honor to God because He can do those things I can't. And despite my shortcomings and sin, despite my selfishness, He allows for some things. He allows for some tragedies and traumas, and He uses them. And He tells us that He uses it for our good if we would cooperate with Him. And He's called us back to Japan. This
That's
calling
awesome.
that's been on our hearts for so many years, and we're so grateful to now be finally going 2 years later after our initial time this October to go do church planning for as long as the Lord would have us there. But more so than that, that we would really understand this principle of resting, but also refining. Maybe I'll end with this, if that's okay.
Sure.
When we were re-engaging with our mission agency, the ultimate moment that made us realize we were being called back to being on mission in Japan was that we heard from many missionaries that were on the field and had been there for many, many years. And the testimony that they were all sharing at different times, unbeknownst to each person, was that they learned on mission in Japan that despite it being really difficult and stressful, the language being challenging, fruit being slow, all of these things that they were admitting was really difficult and in many ways made them question things or sometimes want to go home or fight or bicker or what have you. That ultimately they wouldn't change anything though, because they're realizing that that's how God does the most work, not just through, but in them. And that's ultimately my desire. I know I'm speaking for my wife as well. That's our desire, whether we're missionaries, pastors, streamers, whatever it is that all of us are doing in our lives. Our desire, truthfully, is to be refined. That we would learn who's God and who's not. And that in that, we would be made less and God would be made more. And I believe we see that in Scripture.
Sure.
And I'm seeing that lived out in my life.
That's really good. I just feel like I'm sitting under like 6 different sermons as you're speaking right now, and I'm just like getting wrecked so many different ways. I'm like just thinking about all this stuff and trying to keep it all
Sorry, I
together.
can be a talker.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate your heart and just sharing it. And you communicated clearly. I mean, one reason because you communicated it quite often to people over the last season, but just good communication. So one thing I did want to ask that's relevant too, I was just thinking about this, is so correct me if I'm wrong, you're a military kid, right?
Yep, my dad was Air Force 21 years, and then I was Army for 5.
Okay. So do you think, first of all, yeah, let's get some hype and some amens in the chat for Winkari's story and just being willing to share. All I have is literally the word hype.
Hey, it's technically hype in the chat, so
that's funny.
it.
Good morning, Link. Everybody, thank you for being here. No, you're good. Oh, and I understand. Okay, so one thing I did want to ask is, do you feel that the fact that you hopped around so much and went to so many different places and so many different nations and, you know, etc., because of the military, do you feel like that gave you or assisted or planted in you? Good morning, Nick Cage. So do you believe that that kind of steered you to mission work, made it easier to be like, I'm used to living everywhere and uprooting? And do you feel like that was related?
Absolutely. I think, like I was talking earlier, the older I get, the more I realize, looking back, how God orchestrates these things, that they're not accidents.
Sure.
Yeah, I've done a lot and seen a lot and lived a lot. And that's why I said earlier it's not a pat on the back. It's more so that God knew exactly what he was doing.
Sure.
He was taking this rambunctious, energetic, theater, movie, musical loving kid and using that through an Air Force, family, and then performing, and then the military doing broadcasting, and then et
Mm.
cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's not by accident. I'm ironically more of an introvert, but I'm extremely functional or functionally extroverted because of a lot of what God's put through me, or what God has put me through. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's good. I met somebody recently who's also similar thing where they traveled everywhere and lived in Japan. Even I was talking to them this, and just hearing their story, and similar, they're mission minded as well. And it's just, I feel like it's. I mean, you can be mission minded, not have gone everywhere and lived everywhere, but I just feel like it tends to lend itself to those families and people that are believers that have military background. So, okay.
Well, and
Oh,
can I
go
just
ahead.
say,
Yep.
just real quick on that point, because my wife and I are the exception. And what I mean by that is, to your point, which is really, really important, and I don't want people to miss that God's mission is from everywhere to everywhere.
Sure.
That's what God's mission is. So I don't want people to hear like, oh, this is the thing to achieve, right? Or to strive for. Absolutely not. We're the exception. It's way less common that God's going to send people very, broadly to different parts of the world. More often than not, he needs people exactly where they are to work in their spheres and circles of influence.
Sure.
Because that's where you're going to have the most relational equity to be able to affect people. And that's just as, if not more important than those, quote, missionaries, going over abroad to do the real work. Just that's a lie from the devil that shouldn't be perpetuated. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. I guess my next question is, how throughout this whole thing, well, you could do your whole life too, but how has gaming and your walk and the season and everything kind of like intersected? Like, how has that helped, hurt, strengthened? Like, what's been, relate gaming to everything that you've been through.
Sure. Honestly, I've had this conversation with quite a few people, and it's pretty easy for me. It just took me a while to get my kind of pulse or finger on what the thing was. And I'll put it this way. It started with going to things like conventions. If anyone in the chat has been to a convention, put a 712 in the chat. Humor me. Whether that's an anime convention, comic convention, geek convention, what have you. When I went to those growing up, I realized that I was really attracted to these people, this subculture of kind of geek gamers. And looking back, the reason I realized that me and my wife both gravitate towards geeks and gamers is because you have a unity to you. You have this thing, right? The geek gamer dumb that tears down walls, right? And honey and toe. Love it. And I didn't realize that growing up, but I did as I got older, that's what was really attractive to us, that people could get along and cross kind of these borders, so to speak, of different ages, races, religions, etc. Because you guys all have this similar interest. So fast forward, right, to really being a follower of Christ and understanding what it means to be a part of the family of God. It's the same thing. And that's what I want for all people. When I was first introduced, I don't know if he's still in the chat, Susie Live, and then God Squad Church. And then going through what I went through in terms of anxiety and panic, that was part of my draw to not only God Squad Church, but Geeks and Gamers on a really deep level, more than it had been previously, because I now was experiencing more what Geeks and Gamers often go through. And gaming is something that does bring people together. It's something that we all have a joy in, that we can cross those barriers or borders with. And I believe that is a beautiful metaphor for what God does and what God can do if we would let him, that we would have something that's even greater than that geek gamer life. that we're united through him, who he calls us to be, and this family that we know we'll have no matter where we are, what we're doing. It's a beautiful thing to know that if your life changed tomorrow, if you had to uproot and go to another place, another context, etc., you always have that family of God that unites you. And I think there's a cool parallel to gaming there.
Follow up to that would be, and I mentioned this crowd Phoenix too, like last week, and it's related, but last week I was just talking about the fact that in the church, I would say at large, it's more accepted nowadays, but the church at large, video game is often frowned upon, looked down on, demonized in some ways. Oh my gosh, my kid is playing 4 hours of Fortnite every day. Like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. He doesn't have a life and all this stuff, right? What would you say, because you have a little bit of a different perspective and being through some of your stuff, so what would you say to families or people or the church that really about gaming and about its positive, negatives, whatever?
Well, I mean, I might ruffle some feathers, but I think I love the word holistic. If everyone's heard the word holistic, it's one of those words like I grew up and I like, oh yeah, I know what that word means. I never really understood it until I got older. I'll use the word holistic as this, something that really helps you see things from kind of a proper, fully realized perspective. On one hand, I can empathize with people that have those fears or comments, and the reason is because there are some bad examples of people's relationship with gaming. So
Sure.
I do want to start there to not address what I do think is healthy to address, which is simply that anything in moderation, for the most part, that's kind of an absolute statement. Most things in moderation, we'll say, are good. That's maybe where some people have those fears or comments, and I do think it is and should be addressed, even within the Christian realm, that our life shouldn't be gaming. That shouldn't be our life.
Sure.
Right? And there are some of us, even in this chat, where it is. So I do think it's healthy to address that elephant in the room.
Sure.
However, God tells us that everything is being redeemed. 2 Corinthians 5:17-21. This notion that there is a new creation, we are part of that new creation, that God is redeeming and reconciling all things to himself. That includes technology, that includes gaming. God uses all of it. So people might have good intentions when they make comments like that, but I would argue a lot of it's emotionally driven or maybe ill-informed to not really actually assess things in a broader, holistic God view. Because I've seen firsthand through streamers like yourself, ministries like God Squad Church, Susie Live, Aki and Peach. There's some great ministries out there that use geek and gaming for good. So, in short, Your Honor, if someone says that geek and gaming is bad, what they're really saying theologically is that God's not big enough or clever enough or creative enough to use it for good.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
Dang, that's
I
good.
experienced this. I mean, whether it's through streaming or pastoring, God uses it if we would let him. And it's a beautiful thing. It could be anything. We're just using gaming as an example.
Sure. No, that's amazing. No, that's a good word. And I just like to, every week I'm going to ask that question. I just think it's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
So last thing I'll ask is, if you could just summarize everything up into like a word of encouragement, a scripture, something that's like really something you want to hit home, or what you really want people to remember from this, what would that be?
No, I appreciate the question. There's a verse that I don't remember where I read it or what the context was, but I haven't been able to shake it for about 6-8 months. It's Matthew 6:33, I believe, if you guys want to triple check me on this. But this is Jesus talking about something that we can all relate to and was in my story even. The anxieties of life, the desires of life, the worries of life. And he's speaking to that because he knows that we carry it in our heart, that we have worry and anxiety. And he talks about all sorts of things to do with God taking care of us. And he really ends it by saying, and giving us really an encouragement and some directions to follow truthfully, which is to seek him first, seek his kingdom, his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto us. It's something that has dramatically changed my life, my perspective about what it means to have my priorities straight. And to give you a really specific example to kind of make that land and apply for all of us, because that's really important to me. If I'm in a given day and I want to go do something like work or gaming or exercising, whatever the thing may be, I'll ask myself that question first. That I seek him, his kingdom, his righteousness first. And it helps me a lot to understand that that's my priority. That if I am not only resting in him, but I'm putting him first and prioritizing him, whatever that may be for you or me, your quiet time, devotional time, prayer time, fellowship, etc., that God is going to take care of me and my worries and anxieties and the things that my brain is preoccupied with, what I got to get done today, this week, the thing, the tax, whatever the thing that's stressing us out. That I would hope that would be an encouragement to you and for you guys that are here today, that I hope you carry with you, that I'm going to very much hold close to us, particularly as we go into this crazy, foreign cross-cultural ministry, to not get so preoccupied and worried and anxious about all the stuff, but that God makes it very clear. Seek him first, and God will take care of everything.
That is amazing. I need to hear it for sure in this season. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to put this in the chat again. If anyone here would love to partner with the organization that Winkari is partnering with to go do mission work and just support something he's passionate about, the link's in the chat.
And I could share real quick on that if you'd like, just
sure.
to give some context.
Yeah.
So Riptora in the chat there put a link to the mission agency that we're a part of. Those funds don't go directly to us, just so you guys are knowing, in case you're wondering that question. It goes to the Task Unfinished Fund, which is really a giant fund through OMF that helps achieve this task of the Great Commission that God has given us, that Christ has given us, to go to all the ends of the earth, make disciples of all nations and baptize them, teaching them to obey all that he has commanded, right? So that's going to OMF at large. And you can see all throughout the website the many different ways that they do that, of reaching the unreached in East Asia, in case you guys are wondering.
No, that's good. No, I appreciate the information. The way we're set now that there's more people here too, the way that this channel, something I'm really doing to create value and just really help people and different things that they're passionate about, is anyone that comes on to share, whoever they choose, they'll be able to support a ministry and organization, somebody they're working with already. In his case, you can reach Winkari if you want to type in your Discord information in chat. Alexandra's asking how to connect with you and support you directly. So I don't know if Ohana's still here or you want to type in your Discord information.
Yeah. Sure.
But every week, whoever comes on, we're going to partner with something that they're passionate about. So any donations that come in, whether to me or a sub in the future, 100% of that money that doesn't need to be saved for taxes is going to go directly to those organizations to create value for them and just fill up their buckets and the things they're passionate about. And yeah, Winkari, I just realized I don't have links not permitted, so it's all good, but I gotta remember that for the future. But anyway, yeah, there's the place you can partner with him directly. The other thing is, if you know somebody, if this testimony really encouraged you, inspired you, and you want to share your story, or you know somebody that has an epic story or something that they want to share or would be good to share, please, you can fill out the link. There's a Google form in the chat there. You can go there, fill it out. I'll reach out and connect with you, and we'll just plan a day to talk and to get you on the schedule. The next few weeks we have Blackhawk, who's going to be on here, and Blackhawk's got an amazing story. He was a member of like the Compton Crips and like all this stuff, has a crazy testimony of how God's redeemed his life and all this stuff that he's been through. And then Nyag is going to be on at some point. Nyag's a member of the community as well. Just Becca, she's going to share a story, and their story is really powerful. And so I do have more people on deck too. I'm just looking for more stories, more people, more vulnerable people to share, because like I said at the beginning, testimony, the root word for testimony is do it again. So what God has done in someone's life, he definitely can and wants to do it again in your life, especially if it's relevant and it's something that you're going through. So the whole point of this channel is just to encourage people, create hope, and just, so thank you everyone for being here. It's been a great morning. I will be here next week on Wednesday at 8 in the morning again. We are looking at a second day, not to do a second day of testimonies, but praying through what that looks like. They upped the affiliate requirements now, so now you have to do 8 hours of streaming a month and 7 individual days. And so that creates a little bit of change in plan from the original plan. Obviously the goal is not to get to make a ton of money and do all that stuff, but really to just funnel everything possible into people's passionate projects and things that they're doing. But it would be nice to be able to get some of the videos edited and just do some things like that. So I appreciate everyone being here, following. If you're a new follower, like, glad you're here. But yeah, just be praying over the channel, praying over the future, praying over an alternative day and things we could do. I'm really passionate about MMOs. I don't want to steal any of Susie's thunder, but I'm thinking about maybe doing like straight up MMO roulette, where just randomly every week we just choose a new MMO, anything that's available online, and just play the first couple hours just to experience it together. Things like that. Just trying to brainstorm and connect the community but yeah, I love you guys. I appreciate you being here. Winkari, again, thanks for being here. Thank you for your beautiful wife hanging out and creating some spam in the chat. I appreciate it.
He's the best.
Okay, I love you guys. We will see you next week at 8 a.m. on Wednesday. Have a great afternoon, morning, everything. Love you guys. See ya.
Bye-bye.